planning meeting here today on the 15th of January. I'd just like to remind you again, as you heard previously, can you make sure all the electronic devices are on silent, please? My name is Councillor Gary Marsh. I'm the chairman of the committee. To my left is my vice chairman, Councillor Hitchcock. To his left is Solomon, our legal eagle. And to my right I've got the full house of all the planning officers here. To the left and to the right and in front of me are, well, none to the right, but in front of me are the members who are going to be making the decisions. Now, before I start the agenda, I'd like to welcome Councillor Wood, who's joining us for this is his first meeting. I've got a good one here, Councillor Wood. Without further ado, I will start. So item 1 is to note substitutes in accordance with Rule Procedure 4. I do not have any. Item 2 is to receive apologies from absence. I've got Councillor Bashir and Councillor Kenny. And item 3 is to receive any declarations of interest. Do I have any on the agenda? Yeah. Nope. Yeah. And item 4 is to agree by general affirmation the minutes of the previous meeting we held on the 4th of December. Oh, Councillor Cherry. Yes. Could you press your button, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I just wanted to make comment on the minutes and the fact that the meeting lasted for 1 3/4 hours and there were only 2 planning applications on the agenda for that meeting. I feel that the minutes are very, very minimalist in their content, that they simply state what was resolved by the committee, and they don't offer any flavour as regards the discussions and points that were made. I'm talking about the Marlow House application, and there was a lot to that. And none of it is reflected in these now minimalist minutes. And I'm wondering.
I must admit, I did think that they were a little bit sparse, shall we say?
Yes, yeah. I mean, if somebody's, particularly with this case, because we've got other things coming, I believe. The minutes are going to be completely useless because they don't show any reflection of what was discussed at that meeting and the points raised. I mean, other than wading through the YouTube recording of the meeting, where else can people find out what actually was discussed? And if you can't rely on the minutes, then what are they there for?
That is very true. Can we have a little bit more weight? Chair, Solomon.
Chairman, thank you for allowing me to speak on this item. The legal requirement is that there are minutes of a meeting. They're not meant to be a blow-by-blow account of what was said or of the discussion. And what we're having to do now is to ask ourselves whether to do minimal minutes in the ones that you've seen, or as previously, longer minutes, which were then disputed by reference to the YouTube program. And so I accept what you say about the minutes being minimal, and I think what we are learning from this is that they're too minimal and that we need to put a bit more in there, but we need to balance that with not making them a blow-by-blow account, because what's been happening is that people have been looking at the YouTube recording, the webinar, and challenging what's written in the minutes on the basis of what's been said on the webinar. So it's a balancing act, and I accept what you say, Chair, and we're going to try and walk that carefully.
Yeah. I've just been speaking to my planning officer. We'll take that offline and come up with a happy medium. We've got the Constitutional Working Group coming up, which I shall be chairing, and then we'll perhaps have a little talk about it there as well.
Bring them back to the next one.
What, these minutes? Can we bring them in? Okay, we will take it offline because it's the approach that apparently across all committees, not just our planning committees, but I think they're a bit too sparse personally. I think they just need a little bit more meat onto the bones, but it will be offline and and then we will communicate it to all the members. In the meantime, I suppose I better say, can I sign them off what we've got? Because they're not. Agreed, okay, thank you. All right, item 5 is to consider any items I take as urgent business. I have none. So item 6 is DM 251887, Skeins Hill Millennium Village Centre. And this one's yours, Andrew.
Thank you, Chairman. Heating plants, including the installation of an air source heat pump and 3 condenser units. The reason it's being considered here.
Hang on a second, Andrew, we've got nothing on the.
Reason it's being considered at this committee is it's on land owned by Mid Sussex District Council. So it's a fairly straightforward building with car park to the front and surrounded by the recreation grounds. Two of the 3 condenser units are to the side of the building with the air source heat pump also to the side. One of the condenser units is to the rear. The condenser units measure just over 1 metre in width and 1 metre in height, and the air source heat pump is 1 metre in width and 1.35 metres in height. They'll be covered by protective mesh cages. The upgrading of the system increases the sustainability of the building here by enhancing its long-term viability. Its modest size will mean it's viewed in context with the existing building, albeit it is obviously publicly visible from the footpath that runs to the side of the building and the recreation ground. In terms of neighbouring amenities, the nearest neighbour to the building has raised concerns about noise. However, our environmental health team are satisfied that the proposal doesn't cause unacceptable levels of noise pollution. A condition has been placed on the recommendation that it is built in accordance with the submitted noise details, and an informative has been placed on it. Were noise to be an issue once installed, that it will be investigated by our environmental health team under the Environmental Protection Act 1990. It is therefore deemed to comply with policies DP25, DP26 and DP29 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan, and is therefore recommended that permission is granted subject to the conditions set out within Appendix A.
Thank you, Andrew. I should just remind members that the only reason this is here is because we actually own the land. Otherwise, this would have been a delegated decision. So can anybody wish to speak? Councillor Brown, as you're the local ward member.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah. I had a good look at this, including the report from the noise consultant and the comments from the nearest neighbour in Skeins Hill. And I thought it was a very clear report from the noise consultant. There's just one thing they did mention that could get missed, and that is it's dependent on the condensers being mounted on isolating supports, because that can will reduce the noise level. So they make that point. But, I'm, as ward member, if nobody else is wanting to comment, I'll be happy to move this.
Thank you. Councillor Kennedy, you came up onto my screen. Do you wish to speak?
Yes, I was removed unwillingly. Anyway, I was going to echo what Councillor Brown has said. I think this is fairly straightforward. The concerns by the nearby resident have been dealt with, in my view, and I'm happy to second this proposal.
Okay, so we have a proposer from Councillor Brown and a seconder from Councillor Kennedy. Can you all signal in the normal way? Green if you approve, red if you don't, and yellow to abstain. Thank you. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. That has been approved. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew. Right, the next item, I don't think it'll be quite as quick. Somehow. Is DM 251495, land adjacent to Rocky Lane, Haywards Heath, West Sussex. When you're ready, Hamish, please begin. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So before going through the application, I'd just like to draw members' attention to the agenda update sheet. It has come to our attention there are existing electronic communications equipment the applicant operates within the surrounding area. This was put to the applicant and they have advised that the existing infrastructure cannot provide adequate coverage to the railway line. And this information is on the planning register and it's considered to be sufficient to allow for a determination of this application. So the application before the committee is a full planning application for the installation of a 22.5 metre high lattice tower within a fenced compound, a new vehicular access and associated infrastructure at land adjacent to Rocky Lane, Haywards Heath. The application site is located within the countryside to the south and west of the built-up area of Haywards Heath. To the east of the site is the existing railway line and a woodland. The location plan is on the left with the site outlined in red. On the right is the compound outlined in blue. There are significant trees surrounding the application site. Ancient woodland is located to the west of the proposed access. Down here, that's the other side of Rocky Lane from the proposed access. The nearest residential properties to the site are located some 80 metres to the east of Rocky Drive. So they're not on this plan, but you'll see them later on in the images. And they're on Rocky Drive. Rocky Lane is located to the north and west of the site, and a woodland and open fields are located to the south of the site. The application site consists of an open green field located to the west of the London to Brighton main line. It is predominantly an open grassed area which is surrounded by significant tree lines. The maximum height of the trees within the surrounding area is considered to be some 12 metres in height. The submitted documents state that the proposal is part of a larger scheme to provide macro-level mobile media connectivity to fill gaps where existing mobile network operators' sites do not provide coverage along the railway line. It also states that the proposal will provide improved coverage within the local area. Here are the existing elevations of the site on the left and the proposed elevations on the right. There is also a top-down plan of the proposed mast in the centre here. So the compound is highlighted in blue and would consist of a proposed lattice tower, highlighted in green, 12 cabinets and a shared meter cabinet. The compound will be surrounded by a 2.4 metre high palisade metal fence, and the compound would measure some 10 metres in width and 15 metres in length. The proposed cabinets and fencing will be characterised by steel in a fir green colour. Here is the proposed new access onto Rocky Lane, located to the southwest of the site. It'll include a turning area constructed of compacted MOT Type 1, and no permanent trackway is proposed within the site. A photo montage has been submitted with the application. Here are the first images from Rocky Lane to the northeast of the site. Left is existing and right is proposed.
Could you
So
just highlight where it
here-
is?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Here's the mast here. So you can see the residential properties there as well.
You couldn't see it.
So the next one is further along Rocky Lane, still to the northeast of the site. Again, left is existing and right is proposed, and the mast is here. And the next one is the roundabout to the north of Rocky Lane. And again, left is existing and right is proposed, and this is the mast there. So I also have some photos of the site. So the top left one is from the residential properties to the east of the site. The bottom left one is from inside the site towards the proposed access. And the right-hand photo is from the lay-by to the west of the site towards the proposed access. So you see where this fence is here, the access is just to the north here. And next, yeah, so these are some more photos. Left hand is looking north within the site, and the right hand is looking south within the site. So 165 letters of representation have been received, and 151 object to the proposal for the reasons set out within the report. However, in summary, they raise issues regarding the proposal's impact on the character of the area, impact on amenities of nearby residents, impact on highway safety, impact on the health of residents, impact on biodiversity, impact from radiation electronic magnetic frequencies, and non-compliance with planning policies. They also raise concern regarding the information that has been submitted with the application, and that it is insufficient to determine the application or inaccurate, and the application wasn't suitably advertised. 12 representation letters have been received in support of the application, advising that they would improve the mobile reception within the area. The Parish Council have recommended refusal of the application due to non-compliance with policies DP12 and DP23 of the district plan, and raised concerns over the impact on biodiversity, impact on those with medical implants, overdevelopment and local objection. The West Sussex Highways team, the council's ecologist, newt officer and tree officer have raised no objection to the proposal. So the issues are set out within the committee report. In summary, the proposal represents an expansion of the electronic communications network, and it provides clear benefits in relation to improved telecommunications infrastructure within the district. It is considered that the site selection and equipment specification have been sufficiently justified through the application documentation. The proposal is supported by policy DP23 of the district plan and paragraphs 122 and 123 of the MPPF. Views of the proposal will be partially screened by the existing trees within the surrounding area and the topography of the surrounding landscape. It is considered that clear views of the apparatus will be mainly confined to the immediate vicinity. The proposed mast is of galvanised steel, which would assimilate with the predominant colour of the UK sky, and it is not uncommon for tall metal structures to be sited within the countryside along the train line. There are existing significant electricity pylons within the surrounding area. Taking into account the design, location and scale of development, it is considered the proposal would maintain the quality of the rural landscape character of the countryside in this location, and it would not cause significant harm to the amenities of existing residents, including taking into account impact of noise, air and light pollution. The resulting access arrangements, the impact on trees and ecology are also considered acceptable. The proposal would provide a biodiversity net gain. A declaration of conformity public RF exposure guidelines, formerly known as an ICNIRP compliance certificate, is included with the application, thereby ensuring the compliance with paragraph 122 of the MPPF, and paragraph 123 of the MPPF states that the LPAs should not seek to set health safeguards different from the International Commission guidelines for public exposure. As said, several representation letters have been received in respect of the proposal's impact on health, and whilst these comments are noted, it's not considered that conclusive evidence has been provided which states that this development would have an impact on the health residents, including those who have pacemakers or similar devices. As such, after due consideration, it is considered that these comments are given little weight. It should be noted that the proposal is at least some 80 metres from the nearest residential properties, businesses, schools and other sensitive receptors. This is considered to be a relatively significant distance. Therefore, the proposal is considered to comply with policies DP12, DP21, DP23, DP26, DP29, DP37 and DP38 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan, the Anstey, Stapleford and Brook Street Neighbourhood Plan, the Mid-Sussex Design Guide SPD, the relevant provisions and the relevant provisions of the MPPF. It is recommended that planning permission should therefore be granted, subject to the conditions set out in Appendix A. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Hamish. Now, before I call the public speakers, can I just briefly mention that you may hear different comments from the speakers. I don't want any cheering, clapping, booing in the public gallery, please. So I'm going to call the first public speaker, which is Councillor Amanda Saunders. If you'd like to come to there, Councillor. And when you press your button, you'll get 2 minutes. Just to let everybody know, Councillor Saunders is actually representing Anstey and Staplefield Parish Council. So you'll get 2 minutes to speak. Your time will start the moment you start talking. Up on the screen in front of me, there's a timer. After 30 seconds to go, so you've done a minute and a half, I will say 30 seconds. Just keep going until such time as I say, conclude your speech thing. Thank you. Councillor.
The report states that the application is supported by policy DP23 of the District Plan and paragraph 122 of the MPPF. We strongly disagree. Both policies are clear that new telecommunication sites should only be supported where existing infrastructure has been properly explored. In this case, the applicant Cellnex already owns an operational telecommunications pylon just 0.4 miles away on Rocky Lane, which provides good coverage, including to the railway line. In 2024, Cellnex opposed another nearby mast application, stating this pylon was sufficient, yet it is not mentioned in the application, was not assessed as an alternative site and is not referenced in the report. This is a clear failure to demonstrate compliance with DP23 and MPPF paragraph 122. If the pylon has been considered and discounted, that decision must be clearly documented and justified. It has not been. Turning to accessibility and equality, policies DP28, DP26 and the Council's Equality Impact Assessment require development to be safe and inclusive. Residents with evidenced metal implants and active implantable medical devices are explicitly excluded from the health safeguards provided by the International Commission Guidelines for Public Exposure. Additionally, the public exclusion zone has not been clarified, despite requests from the Parish Council. Without this information, the Council cannot lawfully assess risk, especially given the proximity of homes, a play area and the railway line. There are also unresolved concerns about the electronic hum noise and sensory impact, particularly for children and individuals with autism or sensory processing difficulties, contrary to policies DP26, DP28, DP29 and MPPF paragraph 96. Finally,
30 seconds.
This proposal represents a significant industrial intrusion into an open countryside, contrary to DP12, DP38 and the Neighbourhood Plan 3.3. A 24.7 metre mast that is double the height of the tree line, extensive fencing and 150 square metre compound and service track cannot reasonably be described as preserving rural character. For these reasons, the application fails to demonstrate compliance with the development plan and the MPPF, and we urge that it be refused.
Thank you. You've done some practice. Thank you. I'd like to call, well, actually, on my sheet is Joe Kennedy, but unfortunately he's not well. So Martin Thornhill is going to read out Joe Kennedy's 2 minutes first, and then he's going to read out his own 2 minutes. So it's two separate speeches. So when you're ready, Mr. Thornhill.
BP23 says preference should be given to the use of existing sites rather than provision of new ones. And MPPF para 122 states applications for electronic communications development should include evidence that the applicant has explored the possibility of erecting antennae on existing infrastructure. Cellnex's application failed to do this despite existing suitable infrastructure already operated by them. In 2024, Icon Towers Limited, ITIL, submitted an identical application, DM 240880, to provide 5G cover to the same stretch of the Brighton Main Line. Cellnex objected, stating ITIL's development of a ground-based mast is not justified, given their failure to properly consider the installation of apparatus on electricity transmission towers in line with sequential approach in the NPPF and Government Code of Practice. Our existing, well-established installation located nearby on pylon 4VM121 provides shared electronics infrastructure used by Vodafone, Virgin Media and O2. ITIL argued electricity pylons are unsuitable for more advanced technologies, but Cellnex responded, it is inaccurate and misleading to claim that electricity pylons are unsuitable for the installation of improved electronic communications technologies, and Cellnex's pylon sites are being upgraded to permit this across the country. Cellnex concluded these factors justify the refusal of prior approval. One has to question, therefore, why Cellnex failed to consider existing sites in their application as required by paragraph 122, when in Cellnex's own words, their existing pylon site is suitable, contrary to what it says in the update document issued today.
Thank you. Right. Could you reset the clock, please? Right. Oh, sorry, could you reset it so that Mr. Thornhill hasn't actually started? Thank you, Mr. Thornhill.
The vast majority of 25-metre tall masts are aimed at the horizon to achieve the broadest possible signal cover. Consequently, those living closest to these masts get very poor signal and very little radiation because the beam passes over their heads. This development is entirely different. To provide cover to trains immediately adjacent to the mast, the signal must be angled steeply down or it will pass overhead and the trains will receive no signal. This will also put the closest residences just 75 metres away and the play and exercise area 40 metres away in direct line of fire of the most intense electromagnetic radiation. ISNERP certification excludes individuals with implants, electronic medical devices, for example, pacemakers, defibrillators, cochlear implants, infusion pumps, etc. The MHRA warned that these devices are very sensitive to electromagnetic interference. Physicians like myself are required to warn patients not to keep mobile phones close to these devices. The risk posed by large transmitters is much greater, however. While arguably less of an issue with broadcast transmitters, this particular proposal poses a much greater interference risk by targeting 20 different operator and frequency radiation directly at those living closest. In such an extreme situation, it is unsafe to assume that there's no risk. NPPF Para 121 requires planning authorities to ensure that they have evidence to demonstrate that electrical communications infrastructure is not expected to cause significant and irremediable interference with other electrical equipment. Cellnex have not provided this and it's not covered by ISNERP certification. So to comply with Para 121, the Council should require Cellnex to provide this evidence or use an alternative location that doesn't target signal in the nearest properties, such as their pylon site or options 2 and 3.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Thornhill. Can I call Becky Skerrett, please? And you're speaking in support of the application. Again, once you start speaking, your 2 minutes will start.
I'm Becca Skerritt, the agent appointed by Cellnex to submit applications on their behalf and support this proposal. The mast will accommodate all the operators, therefore limiting a number of additional structures that will be required in the area. An ICNERP certificate forms part of the proposal and confirms the site is within guidelines. Therefore, as stated in the NPPF, health and safety should not be questioned any further. This application is part of a bigger project to improve coverage along the London to Brighton main line to provide seamless coverage along its entire length. This forms part of a package of improvement measures being progressed by Network Rail in conjunction with the UK Government. The deployment of new connectivity infrastructure along a relatively high-speed railway line is subject to many constraints, including technical, operational and health and safety considerations. These include the limited amount of land available alongside the railway line to deploy the required base stations where significant stretches of the railway runs in cuttings or tunnels, Where possible, existing sites and buildings are utilised, but some areas require a new site. The site is located to the north and west of the built-up area of Hayward's Heath and to the west of the railway line. There are significant trees to the north, south, east and west, which provide screening to the site. Whilst the site is predominantly to provide coverage to the railway line, the surrounding area will benefit from improved coverage. Only the upper sections of the tower will be visible due to the trees in the area, and the site is over 4 kilometres from the National Park. Technically, the antennas must be positioned above the tree line and be high enough to provide coverage to the railway line. A tree survey and ecological appraisal support the proposal and advise that all trees will be retained and that tree protection measures will be implemented. The existing access to the site has not been used for a long period of time,
Already got 25 seconds.
and the Highways Authority had concerns about reopening the access. A new permanent access will therefore be created, and a traffic impact statement accompanies this application confirming that the access is acceptable in highway terms. The siting of sites is paramount in providing requisite coverage to the train line, and we consider that the public benefits of this proposal outweigh any perceived visual impact. We respectfully ask that permission is given for this proposal.
Thank you very much. Now, before we go to debate, I'm going to ask Hamer about, what are you going to answer about the track?
Haven't we got Councillor Avery?
Oh, sorry, got two, sorry. Ward councillors, do apologise. Right, unusually, this is right on the boundary between Councillor Avery's and Councillor Bates, but Councillor Bates has been involved in this, but as is not actually the ward councillor, I've allowed Councillor Bates to speak to the committee, but he's subject to the 2 minutes. So, you like to take your time? You forgot about that.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Could you put the 2 minutes again for him? Thank you.
Councillor Richard Bates, and I represent Ashenground Ward in Hayward's Heath, which includes the Rocky Lane Estates, which is part of Staplefield and Anstey Parish Council. I'm really supporting the other speakers here. Briefly, the Rocky Drive is the place where the nearest homes are, and it's not shown on our site map that we were given. I've made a site visit there. The ground or the access is very difficult indeed. And now there's an issue about whether it's going to be a permanent roadway or not, from what I've heard just now. And also I'm very concerned about the security of the access. So I need some more information on that. Also the fact that we have some existing masts that seem to be doing the job, and I've been on that train up and down and I've never had a problem with my signal, so I'm very confused about that as well. So the other thing is, could this, if we've got to have a mast, is where the mast should be located, and perhaps there is a better position than what is being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Short, sharp and sweet. Thank you. Now, Councillor Avery is actually the ward councillor for this actual particular site, and he's, for the members and people watching on YouTube, he's not subjected to the 2 minutes, but all ward councillors are aware not to test one's patience of the committee. So, no timing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trying to summarise the points which have been made by others who've spoken previously, it seems to me there's 4 main areas that this is subject to discussion. The main point is the siting of the pylon already on Rocky Lane, which hasn't been considered as an alternative site, and that in itself seems to be doing a good job. Now, we've had an update just now saying that we have been made aware of other electronic communication equipment within the locality of the application site, which is under the ownership or used by the applicant. The applicant has provided information on all the existing equipment within the surrounding area and advised that these existing sites are unable to provide the necessary coverage for the railway line. This information will be saved to the planning file. Now, okay, so that's a late adjustment, but that was never part of the original application. And it seems to me that, you know, alternative sites could have been considered. I mean, we're all aware of the need for infrastructure and, you know, and how poor generally the signals are for telephone and Wi-Fi in Mid Sussex. So we're all in favour of that. But again, the sighting of masts all over the countryside is a cause for some concern under DP12 and DP23. So in an ideal world, we try and find one location that could site several masts and several bits of infrastructure. So that's item one. The second issue is that of electromagnetic signals impacting on implants such as pacemakers, etc. And Mr. Thornhill has done it in a much more scientific way than I can possibly do. But the point about these normally being situated on top of a hill so that the signal goes over the local populace is, I think, a very valid one. And the fact that this now, to work, has to shoot down onto the railway line, which in turn shoots directly into the kiddies' playground, something like 80 metres away, and the Rocky Lane estate across the railway line. So, again, from information I've seen, and I'm no scientist, that just seems a point which hasn't fully been considered, really. I mean, you know, just generally impact on the countryside. Now, as we go into further into the 21st century, the need for infrastructure is getting more and more, and we all accept that. However, again, it goes back to item one, really. If that could be linked to an existing installation, then that would have been very helpful. So we were there on Monday, had a walk around, so there's going to be a new path off Rocky Lane, and a hard standing, and then walking across the field to a new enclosure, which is, you know, in virgin countryside to a large extent. I know you've got telephone pylons going across and the like, but we seem to have more and more of industrial sites set within the countryside, which is disappointing, really. And the last point that nobody's raised is item 4, a new hard standing being created off Rocky Lane, adjacent to the aquifer, the stream, the river, which goes down into the ancient woodland across the other side, and the potential for flood risk of that. I mean, the whole area is within a floodplain, and the putting in of MOT type fill for hard standing for trucks and lorries and what have you is only going to put pressure on that aquifer and could potentially cause flooding. And I haven't seen anything which relates to that or confirms or doesn't confirm that that's been taken as a consideration for or against. So those 4 items are just 4 areas where, just looking at the backup information in the officer's report, I don't really consider it being fully taken on board. And certainly the aspect of the electromagnetic signals so close to people. I've seen some of the objection letters, and there's genuine concern that that is not being taken into account. So I'd like the committee just to take on board, you know, cognizance of those 4 points, really. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Councillor Avery. Thank you very much. Now, a lot of points have been raised, so I'm going to just go back to the planning officer. Hamish?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, just to come back on a couple of points. So there's a question about whether there be a permanent track or not. So a permanent track isn't proposed, so it's just that there'll be a permanent access. Excuse me. There isn't a access track from the access to the compound proposed. There'll be a condition if the committee are minded to approve the application, requiring a construction management plan to show how the compound will be constructed, and then as part of that, the site will be need to return to how it was beforehand, and the nature of these types of compounds is they're very low maintenance, so it won't require regular visits. So an permanent access track isn't required. So just to clarify that. And then there was some queries about the access. The access will be built in accordance with the approved plans that the local highways authority are content with. So yeah, we don't consider that to be an issue. The council did have a similar application in Hassock Stations Goods Yard, which was a prior approval application that we looked to refuse due to its siting and appearance. That was taken to appeal, and the appeal was allowed, and the inspector dealt with a number of matters, including impact on the surrounding area and also impact on health. And I'll just read from their decision notice. So they've said at paragraph 17 of that decision, concerns have been raised about the potential effects on health. However, the appellant has provided a certificate to confirm that the proposal has been designed to comply with the guidelines published by the ICNIRP. In these circumstances, the framework advises that health safeguards are not something which a decision maker should determine. No compelling evidence has been provided to indicate that the ICNIRP would not be complied with, or that a departure from the national policy would be justified. So I think that's just worth noting that that's how inspectors have dealt with that issue in similar applications. And I think that's it from me, Chairman. Thank you.
Cheers, thank you. Hamish, thank you very much. All right, members. Councillor de Bell. Thank you.
Why is it always me?
Why not?
I think that on the face of it, when we've looked at this, we're dealing with a piece of equipment that's hidden amongst the trees. That was the way we were looking at it originally. But I must admit that that Mr. Thornhill's presentation touched me deeply, because what we're dealing with here is the creation of radiation. And I know a lot of times when I've been talking to people from my own area, they're very concerned about the number of masts that are going up. It's something that I don't believe, take too much of cognizance of when we're actually dealing with planning applications. The radiation, and if it's pointed downwards, and that to me was the most striking thing that was said today. And that's something that I am most concerned about, and I think that we possibly need to take more cognizance of this when we're actually dealing with planning applications. Not that we don't try to do the best that we can, I know that. But it's not a question of can we, but it's should we. Should we put up masts just simply because they're amongst the trees and away from everywhere, if they're pointing downwards and they're causing people problems? And I think that this is something that's going to carry on coming to the fore as we go forward with planning for masts, etc. And that will be something that will be in my thoughts when we come to the decision on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just to remind members, and it was this committee that made that decision, down in Burgess Hill, a couple of it's exactly the same company, exactly the same set of circumstances, and the houses were a lot nearer than they are at this point in time. Councillor Cherry.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I was looking at the reasons as to why we needed this mast, and clearly the issue really is about safety on our railways. And Network Rail, I understand, is actually putting these masts all the way along the London to Brighton line, because they need to increase the communication between their centre and the railway drivers, because at the moment there are often near misses and some catastrophic cases of obstructions being on the line. And the drivers are not aware of this. I mean, just locally, I read on Facebook that somebody's dog was on the line and was completely run over. You know, and children play on the lines and all the rest of it. And the more information that a rail driver has, the better. So I can quite understand why Network Rail want to put these masts up. So you've got that, but again, I agree with Councillor de Bell. It's somewhat alarming that the mast is actually going to be pointing downwards towards the railway to achieve this increased security. Because my understanding was, and I'm not a scientist or anything, but the electronic magnetic radiation that is emitted is some form of microwave, and microwaves only travel in straight lines. And obviously, if it's 24 metres up, it's not a problem. But if it's pointing down, this does create a problem. And so it's
Difficult.
It's difficult. It is. So.
I think the one in Burgess Hill, if
Yeah.
members recall, that was on an elevated embankment. This one, you're going into a cut-in
Yes.
to get under as it approaches Haywards Heath railway station. So it's a cut-in all the way through too.
Yeah.
No doubt at some point we'll be sitting in this room and it will be in my village next down the line.
Yeah,
Does anybody else wish to speak? It's a difficult one. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Just to be clear, is it right then that there is no alternative site? That we were talking about pylons that exist already that could have been used to site this equipment, and we're told in the addendum that there's no alternative sites that are suitable. That's my first question. The second one is, are we talking about radiation, or are we talking about electromagnetic signals?
Electromagnetic.
They're not the same thing, I don't think.
No, they're not.
I think we need to be quite clear about this. Well, I don't know. I'm just asking the question. And I think it's something we need to be a bit more clear about. It was very interesting to hear from Hamish about the appeal that took place from Hassocks, and particularly the outcome and comments by the inspector who made that appeal decision and allowed it on the basis of medical devices and their impact. Did you say rightly that they should not be part of our consideration?
Hamish, can you answer that?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the inspector says that it's not something, so in these circumstances, the framework advises that the health safeguards are not something which a decision maker should determine. So from that, so the NPPF says that local authorities should not set different standards, set different health safeguarding. So or set health safeguards different from the International Commission guidelines for public exposure. So it's saying that that certificate sets the guidelines, the local authority should not set different guidelines to that.
And those proposals then are inside the guidelines, are they?
Yeah, so that's the...
just important that we're clear about this.
Sorry, no, excuse me. I'll have to ask you to leave if you don't stop talking, please. You've had 2 minutes. It's us councillors are making the decision. You're the expert, we know, but we're lay people. We've got to go with the guidance we've been given by the officers. So, sorry. Last warning.
Okay, I think it's important that we're clear about these things because it's an important decision, and very similar, as you say, in many ways, to the Burgess Hill decision that we made about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to? No?
Sorry, I would
Want
say...
an answer?
Yeah, well, I've just wanted to say that it's not the same as what we considered outside Wibblesfield Station, as you rightly said, because there the proximity of the railway is elevated considerably, and so you haven't got this directing, you know, the radiation or whatever you want to call it, down to the railway. It was up, and it was high. It's not the same thing.
No, but we have to go with the guidelines that our officers have told us. They comply with the certificate that they've there. And we just heard that we can't make our own up. Can I ask the legal officer to interject? You indicated you wish to.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think we need to be clear that the inspector's decision, the inspector said, and hopefully Hamish can confirm the wording, the inspector said that there was no compelling evidence. No compelling evidence was provided. It wasn't a question that the guidelines were sufficient in themselves. What the requirement is that if there is compelling evidence of impact on people locally, then that compelling evidence has to be taken into account. The decision of the inspector, not just in this case, but in other cases, is that there hasn't been in those cases any compelling evidence.
That's very relevant. Thank you. Councillor Sweatman?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I appreciate the concerns of the people in the room here that have spoken, but as Councillor Kennedy has mentioned, it's difficult for us, but we have to go by what's in front of us, and the guidelines says, especially if you read 12.45, which I think Hamish has just looked at, about the set health guards different from the International Commission guidelines. So that, it's in there. So they're saying that it's seems to be okay. So it's a very difficult one. But,
It seems that we're having the same conversation we had when we had Burgess Hill.
Yes, yeah.
And now since the Burgess Hill decision we made, we've had the Hassocks. And the one in Hassocks was probably more surrounded by residents than anywhere else.
Did we get an answer to Councillor Kennedy's whether that emits radiation or
Could you just?
or we don't?
I don't know if we needed it.
So, with the application was submitted what was previously known as the ICNIRP compliance certificate, which is the Conformity Public RF Exposure Guidelines. And it's not up for the committee to decide which type of radiation it is or what type of magnetic exposure it is. It's that they've submitted this certificate saying it will comply with that. And if the council believe that they have compelling evidence, as Solomon said, that those guidelines won't be complied with, then that's a different question. But it's whether, you have compelling evidence in front of you that says that those guidelines won't be complied with. I hope that's it.
As we said, we get the difficult ones in this committee. We do get the difficult ones. So does anybody else wish to speak? No? Can I have a proposer? Because it is up for approval, and I will read out the recommendation. It is recommended that planning permission is approved subject to conditions outlined in Appendix A. Can I have a proposer? Someone, please? And a seconder? My vice chairman. So can we have a proposal from Councillor Sweatman and a seconder from Councillor Hitchcock. Can we go to the votes? Green if you agree, red you don't, and yellow if you're going to abstain. Well, we got it. We've got 5 in support, we've got 1 against it, and 4 are abstaining. That has been approved. Thank you very much. Right, Joe, do you want to swap over? While we're going through the changeover, just to let you know, everybody know, item 8, the Central Sussex College in East Grinstead has been withdrawn, and that will be coming back at a different next month, I've been told, next month's agenda. Okay, right, this is item 9, DM/24/2922, Holyrood House, Ardenley Road, Linfield, Haywards Heath. This one, yours, Joe.
Thank you, Chairman. So, just turning to the proposal, permission is sought to remove the outbuildings and alter the existing buildings and hard surfaces to allow the change of use from Class C2 of a residential institution to a Class C3 dwelling houses to provide 19 dwellings and retaining the existing dwelling of Holyrood Cottage, together with 37 car parking spaces, private and communal amenity areas, landscaping, bin and cycle stores, and altering the existing access points onto and from Ardingly Road and Park Lane. So just showing this is the location plan. The application site is here outlined in red, and the blue land is other land that is owned by the applicant but does not form part of this application. So Holyrood House is here. It's the former care home located on the eastern side of Ardingly Road, set in extensive grounds, and the site comprises of two access points from Ardingly Road here and Park Lane here, as shown by the cursors. Within the site, there are a number of buildings, including the main house of Holyrood, which is the former C2 residential institution, and an associated building of Oakwood House here. The site was used as a care home for adults with learning disabilities and autistic spectrum conditions. And Holyrood Cottage is located here, close to the access with Park Lane, which is an existing residential dwelling and did not form part of the C2 use. The site lies within the countryside and the High Weald area of outstanding natural beauty. So just turning to the site plan, as detailed earlier on, the proposal is to comprise the conversion of Holyrood House, including various extensions, internal alterations to provide 17 apartments. The Oakwood building here is to be converted into two residential dwellings, and Holyrood Cottage, as I was saying earlier, is to be retained as a 3-bed dwelling as existing. So the access points here on Ardingly Road and here on Park Lane are to be retained and widened slightly. The parking arrangements within the site would be reconfigured to provide 39 car parking spaces around the retained buildings, and there'd also be the provision of refuse areas to the buildings and cycle stores as well. Some of the existing hard surfacing, which you'll see on pictures later on, would be removed and provided as landscaping and garden areas to serve the development. At the moment, there are extensive hard standing areas on the site. And the wider garden areas, which are within the blue land, like I said, does not form part of the application site, would be retained. However, they'd be separated off from the site through hedging and post and rail fencing. So just in terms of the principle of the development, this is set out in para 12.2 of the report. Policy DP25 of the district plan relates to community facilities and local services and includes specialist accommodation and care homes. It supports the loss of such facilities if it is no longer viable or there is an existing duplicate facility in the locality which can accommodate its loss. So this site has been vacant since 2022, and the operators identified that there were more appropriately located facilities elsewhere to meet local care home needs. Whilst the loss of the C2 is regrettable, the property is vacant and no longer viable. It is not suitable for the current operating standards without significant work, which would be prohibitive due to the nature of the buildings. The principle of the change of use in this instance is acceptable and complies with policy DP25. The proposal would result in the reuse of a previously developed site, which is encouraged within policy 1 of the neighbourhood plan. Whilst there was a slightly different policy context, planning permission was approved in 2020 at Buckshalls, which is further north along the Ardingly Road, going up Ardingly Road to Ardingly. That was for a change of use of a nursing home and age-restricted dwellings to 26 properties and the construction of 9 further dwellings. With the Buckshalls application, it was considered the proposal would result in an effective use of land, reusing existing buildings and previously developed land. The principle of conversion and reuse of existing sites within the countryside and area of outstanding natural beauty for housing has previously been supported within the district, and there is support in planning policies for this current development, which is in front of members today. So just a quick look at the existing elevations. This is Holyrood House. It's quite a large house. It's had various extensions. There are a number of unsightly flat roof, 2-storey and single-storey extensions to the buildings itself. Oakwood House is also, this is the existing building, and Holyrood Cottage as well. So this plan just shows the extension and demolition proposed. So the extensions are only mainly to Holyrood House itself, with 2-storey extensions, creating pitched roofs to the existing flat roofs and first floor extensions. There are a number of single-storey buildings within the site which would be demolished as well. So just turning to the proposed elevations, this is Holyrood House. You may recall there was a flat roof extension here. They're looking at creating a pitched roof element to the first floor, and also pitched roof elements to the single-storey elements as well. In terms of the extensions and alterations to Holyrood House, these relate well to the main building through the use of the pitched elements and the removal of the flat-roofed elements, which would result in an enhancement to the building. The extensions address the character and scale of the existing building through reflecting the materials and detailing to the building. There's a number of floor plans showing the proposed conversion to Holyrood House, but just to draw members' attention, at the ground floor, a number of the flats would have private amenity space and terraces, which would be separated to provide defensible space and prevent overlooking between windows of each flat. A condition could be placed on an approval in respect of boundary treatments to ensure that there is suitable fencing to separate these areas. Just turning to Oakwood House, there are to be changes to some of the windows on the building, and these changes are considered to be sensitive. As the site is well enclosed and screened, the change of use of the site from a residential institution to dwellings is considered to maintain the character of the countryside in this part of the district and also conserve the AONB. Whilst there would be changes to the buildings, there would also be the removal of a number of elements on the site, including outbuildings and areas of hard surfacing. This would result in an enhancement to the site. The proposed extensions are considered to address the character and scale of the existing buildings, and the development would provide a suitable size and mix of dwellings. This is just Holyrood Cottage. It is maintaining the same as just internal alterations. In terms of sustainability, the development is to have a fabric-first approach. Details of the measures are set out in para 12.91 of the officer's report and would result in the development achieving a 35% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions. It's proposed to use air source heat pumps for heating compared to the existing gas-fired boilers in the buildings. Just a number of photos to show you of the site. So this is Holyrood House itself in all these pictures. showing some of the flat-roofed elements on the existing building and some of the outbuildings within the site. This is Oakwood, one of the buildings to be converted to the two dwellings. And this is Holyrood Cottage itself. This is from within the site, looking at the large area of hard standing, which is to be removed in part to here to provide garden areas for Oakwood House. And this is Holyrood House itself as well. Begging your pardon. Photos from within the site. This is just the gates going to drive back into Ardingly Road, the access on Ardingly Road as existing, and the corner of Holyrood House and vegetation within the wider site, not forming part of the application. And just some photographs taken from street view of the accesses as existing. This is Park Lane. The bordered area here is the existing access into the site, and this is just the access for the site looking up towards Ardingly and back down towards Lindfield. So the proposal is to retain the existing access arrangements, utilising the accesses onto Ardingly Road and Park Lane, and there are to be minor improvements to the accesses through widening and improving visibility spellies. There are bus stops on either side of Ardingly Road to the entrance as shown here. And there would be improvements to these two bus stops secured through the Section 106 legal agreement for the provision of real-time passenger information displays. The Highways Authority is satisfied with the access arrangements proposed, and it's considered the proposal would not result in a severe impact on the highway network that would justify a refusal of planning permission. So for the site plan, just turning to other issues. In terms of residential amenity, this is set out in detail from para 12.46 of the report. The site is set within extensive grounds, well screened, and due to the distance between the buildings and the neighbouring properties, it's considered the proposal will not result in significant harm to the amenities of these nearby dwellings. The council's ecologist is satisfied with the details provided and raised no objection. Mitigation and enhancement measures are detailed in para 12.135 of the report, which can be controlled by condition. BNG is to be met on site and the proposal would exceed the 10% requirement. In terms of infrastructure contributions are set out under paras 12.185 to 187 of the report, and works on the legal agreement are progressing. Following a viability assessment, the scheme is unable to deliver any affordable housing on site nor make a contribution. This has been reviewed by the council's viability consultant, and a review mechanism would be contained within the legal agreement. Overall, the proposal would provide 19 new dwellings at a time when the council cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. The proposal would result in the use of a previously developed site within the countryside and would result in enhancement to the site. So officers are recommending the application for approval as set out in the report and the presentation, and there is a dual recommendation to allow the securing of the legal agreement. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Joe. We do have a speaker. Can I call Mr. Warren Pearson, please? I'd like to come. We've watched everybody else do it, so I think you know what you've got to do. So once you start speaking, the clock will appear on the screen there, and I will let you know when you've got 30 seconds to go.
Thank you, Chair. I'm the planning agent for the application, so obviously speaking in support. The site's been vacant since 2022 when the former occupiers of the 19-bed residential care home and daycare centre vacated the premises, and the buildings now need to be put to good use to ensure their maintenance and longevity. We've worked hard to provide this viable scheme that repurposes the existing buildings in a sympathetic manner to provide 19 self-contained dwellings. The minor extensions and alterations to the existing buildings do not increase the existing built footprint. The unsightly and obtrusive flat-roofed extensions that have been added over the years will be removed or altered to provide a consolidated and compact built form that will be more traditional in appearance to respect the original parts of the 1930s convent building. There will therefore be no encroachment into the open countryside and a significant improvement in the appearance of the buildings. The scheme also includes the removal of the outlying outbuildings, structures and hard surfaces that litter the site, and a reconfiguration of the parking arrangements and the introduction of more soft landscaping and natural features, all of which will provide for environmental and sustainable improvements. The recommendation to grant planning permission follows from a year of discussions with officers and consultees to ensure that this is an entirely appropriate scheme that can be realised whilst providing the necessary infrastructure to support the future residents and ensure the long-term viability and sustainability of the development. There will be no harm caused by this proposal, and it is in alignment with government guidance that supports the provision of residential uses within existing buildings and on previously developed land. So we hope that we can agree the recommendation of your officers and grant conditional planning permission subject to the completion of the legal agreement.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Pearson. All right, before we start the debate, Councillor Covello, who is the fellow ward councillor of Councillor Brown, couldn't make it here today, and she says she's fully in support, subject to where the Section 106 money will go. Thank you. Councillor Brown, you are the ward councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. I am indeed for Linfield Rural Parish Council, and the boundary with Linfield Parish Council is the Ouse Bridge, just south of the site on the Ardingly Road. So it's, with the exception of Buxhalls, which has just been mentioned, it's development into the rural nature of the Ardingly Road, the BO 2028. But generally, I support it, but I'm conscious of the fact that the Buxhalls development, which is highly similar, as Joanne pointed out, hasn't really developed or sold very well. At least it hadn't when I went there last. So I think the points I'm going to make are about the developer and the local highway authority really missing a few points with this. For instance, the Section 106 funds are directed towards Hickman's Lane Recreation Ground in Linfield, which is a short walk. However, there is no footway from this development, and the local highway authority don't see any need to provide it. And therefore, I'd ask the question, you know, most of these are two-bedroom flats. People are going to have kids. I would think some are going to have kids, and they haven't really got a safe way to get there. And there's plenty of verge on the B2028 from all the way from both sides of Linfield Bridge into the High Street in Linfield. Now, just digressing to a second point, this is 12187. The infrastructure requirements, one of the items is to resurface Skeins Hill Common car park. Well, I attended the Linfield Rural Parish Council meeting on the 10th, because I'm a parish councillor there, although I should say that I had played no part in the comments that I'm coming to in a minute, because I'm not a member of the planning committee. So I've been studying that carefully. But anyway, coming back to the Skeins Hill car park, the idea was to the infrastructure funding would go towards that. However, they've done it and they've paid for it. So I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, it could be used for that purpose. One of the next thing we come to is the bus stops, which is with online time indication, which is really good. It's a good place here because you've got the 270, which is an hourly service, clock-face service, and the 272, which is actually a two-hour service, even though the report says it's hourly, and less regular. But nevertheless, you have got stops, and you're going to have an indicator there, And for those of us that use buses occasionally, you've also got the information online. Metrobus have got loads of information. So you can get to the bus stops and you've got a fairly good idea when the buses are coming with the real-time bus information. Now I'm coming to the question of bus shelters, and I'm just about to suggest that that both Linfield Rural Parish Council and Linfield Parish Council probably need to think about this, because there's infrastructure money that's can't be used now because of the car park having been dealt with and paid for by Linfield Rural. So when it comes to shelters, and this is back to the bus, you need shelters for these bus shelters, bus stops in the centre of Linfield, and that's where there are none. And so I would recommend that the planning officers look at this one again and consult both parish councils and think about providing bus shelters in Linfield, in the centre of Linfield. I waited there myself in the rain a few times. Now, if I may, I'll just have a drink, and then I'll move on to the point that I drew members' attention to in an email, which was the response to this from Linfield Rural Parish Council. So I was surprised at the depth of this response from Linfield Rural, and they were very critical of the local highway authority, and this is something that's happened to us recently with a case that came to us in where was it? Now,
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right. Pretty similar. And I can see that our officers worked hard to work through the highways offering, but it falls down on almost everything, really. Principally, the section 1259 mentions the NPPF sustainability requirements in part 9, section 117A, which should give priority to pedestrians and cycle movements both within the scheme and within the neighbourhood area. And of course, they haven't looked at how the point I made about it's not just buses, it's about walking and cycling to a lesser extent there, I think.
Are we getting to a point, Councillor Brown?
I am,
Thank
yes.
you.
Thank you. The Highways Authority really haven't addressed any of this, and I understand it's a point that we can't use to refuse the determination of the case. But as I say, I'm talking to the developer now and their agent to think about these small things, because I think it's fair to say that the Highways Authority and the developers highways officer in their road safety assessment have rather cooperated together not to address the very many issues there. And my mailbag, since I've been a councillor in 2019, has had a lot of representations about this road, B2028, particularly descending the hill, the traffic speeds. The 85 percentile speed is virtually at 40 miles an hour anyway, because it's de-restricted. You've got a blind exit from Park Road. So there's any number of things which are raised very eloquently in this objection from Linfield Rural Parish Council, and they've asked for Section 106 funding, but they've asked for this to be considered properly, and I don't believe it has, and therefore I don't ask me to move this for approval, because I'm going to have to abstain, because I don't really want my name associated with it, because I think...
Okay, councillor, I think we get the point.
You've got the point. Thank you very
We've
much,
got the
Chairman.
point.
Thank you for listening, everybody.
Just to remind members, the applicants, you saw the red line of the report. They have no jurisdiction on putting in a footpath down that road whatsoever. As much as we would like to see it, unfortunately, it's outside the red line boundary. Councillor Wood, you are the next local member, and I should go next because I'm the other side of the road.
Well, there you go. Yes, and as somebody has walked down in that area, I echo a call for a public footpath, but you know, that's outside of our jurisdiction. I would say about 12.187, the infrastructure requirements. The top three listed there about play space in Hickman's Lane, kickabout contribution, formal sport contribution. I don't think Hickman's Lane is a priority in terms of play equipment in Linfield. It's Linfield Common Playground. I have talked to Rob Anderson on occasion, and he tells me a refurb for that could not be guaranteed until 2034 at the earliest. And given the situation that we're going into local government reorganisation, I personally would like officers to look at those first three proposals. And it may be that they still think some of those things are viable and important, but I think a sum of money that could be stored away for the development of Linfield Common. There's a very active group in the village at the moment who feel that a lot of money has been spent on formal sport, the tennis courts and various other things within the village, but there has been neglect of the playground. And it would be good if we could put some money aside, if this goes through, to make sure that that playground is renewed in good time. Thank you.
That's well within your remit as a local ward councillor to request that.
Thank you.
And the officer have taken over. What I didn't say, and after what Councillor Brown just said, I'm going to take on board what you said about the car park surface. They're going to take a look at it and see if the money could be spent elsewhere in Linfield on a bus shelter. And they're going to liaise with myself as the council. I'll, of course, keep you all in note on that one. I am the ward councillor, the other side of the road, Buckshall side of the road. And this is a good use of brownfield site. This is an excellent use of brownfield site. And it's just decaying. It's a shame that councillors Hersey's, male and female, didn't see this one because that was their fervent desire to get this back into some sort of new housing. So I will be voting for it with the officer's recommendation. I feel this is a good site and lots of small units. I don't think your information is quite right about the Buckshalls. I do think most of them, if not all of them, have been sold because it is a very desirable place. It wouldn't have been sold until we changed the rules in this committee before, but it is a very good site, and if they're any good, and I'm looking at the agent, if they're any good as you are, they were across the road, I'm sure they will go. Councillor de Bell.
I totally agree with what you just said. I just wanted to ask a very benign question. How did it become named Holyrood House? I think it's delightful. It's great that it's actually going to be used and retain its name. But how did it get there?
It's a former convent.
Yeah.
It was a convent, I think, until it was taken over.
Oh, thank you.
The charity that was dealing with people with development issues.
Yeah, there we are. Bit of see we're minor font of knowledge in this place. Councillor Cherry.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Just one small observation regarding car parking. I noticed in the report it's a bit confusing because when you start your report you say there's 37 car parking spaces, but later on you say it's 39, which is better. But then I've been looking at the West Sussex County Council car parking guidelines, and for the number of bedrooms, they calculate one bedroom flats should be allocated 2 car parking spaces, 2 bedrooms, again 2 parking spaces, 3 bedrooms, 3 parking spaces. So on my calculations, where we've got 3 one-bedrooms, 14 two-bedrooms, 2 three-bedroom houses, and then the 1 3-bed, which was the cottage, that actually works out to be 43 car parking spaces, which should be allowed for the residents. And of course, in addition to that, we've got absolutely no provision for visitors or utility vehicles or places for carers to come in and park. So I'm a bit concerned that on the current planning, we haven't really got enough car parking spaces. And particularly, it is important in a country, in a rural area, because I note that there are bus stops. But most people in this sort of environment will need the use of a car rather than a bicycle or relying on buses. So I think we need to increase the number of car parking spaces a little bit. Thank you.
I think you said it yourself, guidelines. They're not rules of thumb, it's guidelines.
But Joe, can you, she's busily going through, it's flipping away quite merrily over there.
I think there is enough, to be perfectly honest. We said exactly the same at Buckshaw's, and they've never full. There's enough spaces up there, and there are more spaces on this site than there was at Buckshaw's. But Joe can answer that question. I'm not an expert.
So there are 39 parking spaces to be proposed, but the West Essex standards are guidelines only to be applied flexibly, and the numbers are based upon parking zone areas, and so they sort of vary for it. So for one bedrooms, it's sort of 1.5 spaces and 2.2 spaces. It does tally up to what it is required, and it's considered acceptable in this instance.
Like the training we had previously, don't go looking for reasons for refusal, unfortunately. Does anybody wish else to speak on this site? Okay, you going to propose? I would like to second it as the nearest other ward councillor. So can we go to the vote, please? Green for yes, yellow for abstention, and red for no. Okay, we've got 9 in favour and 1 abstaining. That is approved. Thank you very much. I'm proposing a 5-minute comfort break because this one I have visualised is going to be taking a little bit longer than all the others. So we'll start again in about 7 or 8 minutes' time. Item 10 on the agenda, oh, we're back on public, thank you. It's DM 242957, Prince Albert, Copthorne Bank, Copthorne. This one's yours, Andy. There is an update as well. Can you, it's quite minimal. But can you have a look at it, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just to draw members' attention to the update sheet, just some corrections in paragraph 10.6 of the committee report to clarify that the tradable area of the retail store will be 245 square metres, with the remainder 127 square metres being the back of house storage area. Within the car park there'll be 23 car parking spaces, but they will be shared between the public house and the retail store use. Okay. So the application site is located at the junction of Copthorne Bank with Brookhill Road in the built-up area of Copthorne, and it consists of a two-storey public house with two-bedroom flat above, with an area of unused land immediately to the south, which is fenced off, a large car parking area to the east, and a grassed pub garden to the southeast. There are dwellings all around the application site, in particular chalet dwellings to the south along Dawn Rise, and there's an estate agent's and a convenience store and post office immediately to the east. The application proposal is to split the site into several new uses, but to retain the existing public house. So first of all, there'll be an enlarged and reconfigured car park to the east, a retail convenience store to the southeast, a 2.5-storey block of 4 apartments to the southwest, with separate access and its own parking area, and a smaller retained pub garden immediately south of the pub. So the car parking area to be split between the pub and the retail area, that will consist of 23 spaces together with a delivery bay and a bike storage area and a strip of landscaping. There will be an apartment building to the south with 6 car parking spaces and a dedicated refuse and cycle area. Turning to the proposed convenience store, this will be split as set out in the update sheet between the retail area, which is a tradable area, and the back of house storage area for deliveries. Elevationally, it will have a monopitched roof with facing materials of brickwork with vertical cladding panels above that, and powder-coated aluminium frame doors and windows. To the apartment building, this will be arranged as 2 ground floor flats with entrances directly from the street, located next to each other, an undercroft area for vehicles to access the car parking area at the back, and a separate access to the flats above on the first and the second floors. In terms of the elevations of the apartment building, you can see these are the 2 frontages doors to the ground floor flats, and the frontage access to the flats above over here, separated with the Undercroft area. And materials will be of brickwork, render, tile hanging and concrete roof tiles. In terms of the impact of the apartment building on the street scene, as seen from Brook Hill Road, this is what you would see in relation to the side elevation of the existing public house, and in relation to Boundary Cottage to the south, and then Willows are shown. The Willows are shown dotted on Dawn Rise because it's a little further back. The application also includes some off-site highway works, and that's set out within paragraph 12.99 of the committee report. So just going through that, there's a formation of a new crossover on Brook Hill Road for the new residential access. There's an existing crossover that will need to be closed and reinstated to full height curbing. A provision of dropped curbs and tactile paving at the junction crossing on Copthorne Bank. Making good the existing access, which is quite a wide drop curb, so that will be narrowed and reinstated with full height curbing either side. And also, because there's a bus stop immediately to the east of the site, in order to provide space for pedestrians, there'll be a build out of the footway by 5.5 metres, and that will retain the parking provision in that area on the junction with Meadow Approach. I'll just show you some photos of the application site. This is the pub at the corner of the junction. This is looking back on Copthorne Bank with the car parking to the left. This is just looking back a little bit further with the estate agents and the Quick Mart convenience store and post office, and looking up towards the north along Brook Hill Road towards the pub there. And within the site, this is within the pub garden, and that shows the fenced off area, which is immediately to the south of the pub, and the paraphernalia associated with the existing use. And finally, just looking back towards Meadow Approach, Hurstwood, and Aurora Cottage and the Willows, and back towards the public house. So the application is recommended for approval as set out in paragraph 3.1 of the committee report. I just want to highlight some main issues for members. First of all, it's acknowledged that there have been a significantly large number of representations for this application, and the vast majority of people as set out in the report are against it, and largely on principle. There's a lot of concern about the loss of much of the pub garden area, and that a new retail unit is being proposed to existing retail units rather than elsewhere in the village. And these concerns are certainly acknowledged by officers. The application proposes the loss of some pub garden land, and residents are concerned about the future viability of this of the existing use. The resultant garden area associated with the pub will be 255 square metres, which is down from 1,009 square metres as existing. So that's not including the area, the unused area to the south of the pub. The application has been accompanied by a viability report that concludes that the proposal will have a nominal effect on the viability of the business in the short and the longer term, and members also will be aware that there is no loss of the pub itself. So therefore, your officers do not think that there is any conflict with policy in this regard. We also have, as part of this application, a proposed new retail unit, and the site is located within a Category 2 settlement, which is a local service centre set out under policy DP6 of the Mid Sussex District Plan. Because the proposed retail unit is below the district council plan and policy threshold of 500 square metres, no retail impact assessment is required, and also no retail sequential test is required. And to just iterate the point in the committee report, at paragraph 12.48, competition between commercial units is not a planning matter. We also have a proposed residential development as part of this application, and your officers are of the view that this is an acceptable use of land within the built-up area. And in terms of the impact on residential amenity, members will note from the committee report at paragraph 12.75, under paragraph 125 of the National Planning Policy Framework, the test of this application is whether the proposal causes substantial harm to residential amenity, and your officers do not consider that to be the case. And overall, as set out in paragraph 13.7 of the committee report, planning decisions should give substantial weight to the planning to the value of using suitable brownfield land for settlement, for homes and other identified needs. Proposals which should be approved unless substantial harm would be caused. So in this case, substantial harm has not been demonstrated, and as such, substantial weight needs to be given in the planning balance to the value of developing this brownfield site. Okay, thank you, Chairman.
Could we not say anything else until Councillor Wood comes back, because otherwise I'm going to exclude him from the meeting afterwards. Thank you, Andy.
Mr. Chairman, it's getting a little bit cold in here now. It's whacking the heating up a little bit, gentlemen. God,
I thought you were on the Arctic convoys.
it's not cold. It's not hot.
It's freezing. Right, thank you, Andy. Right, we have a number of speakers. I'm going to call the first. It's Councillor Liz Williams, and she's speaking on behalf of Worth Parish Council, which Copthorne was part of. Your 2 minutes will start when we put the... Andy, could you kill that picture, please, so we can get... Thank you. Right, when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak to you today. Worth Parish Council sought advice from a well-respected planner based on our parish, but not in Copthorne. Our submission that the application fails to meet the standards required under the District Plan, Neighbourhood Plan and the NPPF was based on his expert advice. Advice from a consultant with good local knowledge should be given more weight. The Prince Albert pub survived COVID, is surviving NI increases and survived a period without a chef. We believe the Savills report on this application is flawed. It fails to point out that during the inspection, the kitchens were closed due to an unfulfilled vacancy for a cook. Does that really define it as a wet pub, or was it a business able to withstand a crisis? This report draws conclusions without adequate investigation. Its findings on viability should be treated with caution. Copthorne has 3 grocery-type stores with 1 housing the post office. It doesn't need a 4th. Decent sequential testing should be conducted before another shop is added. The poor design of the proposed retail outlet, a low-quality shack with unattractive cladding, is not in keeping with the character of Copthorne Bank. The NPPF calls for high-quality design. It is not. The inadequate parking provision is also detrimental to the local amenity. The flats are not included for the enjoyment of their inhabitants. They are there so international investors can benefit at the expense of Copthorne residents. The likely noise from the pub will cause tension with the new residents, who in Copthorne could well be Gatwick shift workers. The new homes are too close and overbearing for existing neighbouring properties and will be detrimental to their amenity. Even without a 5-year housing land supply, under current guidelines, housing sites can be rejected if they are unsuitable. Please do so. This application is a disaster for Copthorne. Please reject it and stand up for high-quality design. Even in these difficult planning times, when it comes to ensuring quality, every little helps.
Oh, like that. Like that. Can I call Tony Dorey, who is the chairman, but he's speaking in his private capacity as a resident of Copthorne. You've been in that seat many a time, so.
I'm speaking here today as a member of the public and a 30-year resident of Copthorne, but I've also been a Worth Parish Councillor for the last 10 years and Chair for the last 5 years. And during this period, I was also served a term as a District Councillor. I'm here to give my own views on what is undoubtedly the most ludicrous planning application I've seen in that time. Although it may be deemed that my comments do not constitute material planning reasons, I feel these have been outlined in the briefing paper submitted to all committee members, but this is a heartfelt plea for some common sense to prevail. Firstly is the issue of the only remaining pub in Copthorne. The initial planning application included a lengthy report claiming the viability of the pub would not be compromised by the proposed development. This is just not true. If you build a supermarket on the garden of the pub, build flats that remove any possibility of extending the pub and reduce the car parking to virtually zero, the pub is not viable. The pub will die and the 4,000 plus residents of Copthorne will be left without a pub at all. Second issue is the report relating to retail and the desperate need for more of it in Copthorne. All of these claims were comprehensively refuted by Worth Parish Council's responses to the submissions, but regardless of whether there is a need for more retail in Copthorne or not there. We have 2 new developments in the west of Copthorne, totalling 550 houses with 0 retail. If there is a need, build it there. Putting a supermarket on a pub garden metres away from the busiest junction in Copthorne is crazy. The fact that it's also 50 metres away from a newly refurbished convenience store that also houses our only post office and less than 500 metres from the other 2 existing retail offers divides belief.
30 seconds.
The permission of this application is likely to lead to the failure of the Quick Mart and therefore the loss of our only post office. So in summary, I'm pleading with every member of this committee to see some sense here and reject this ridiculous application to save our pub, save our post office and save our village.
Very succinct, thank you. Please forgive me if I'm about to kill your name. Dacian Davids Ripala? Oh, that's not bad then, was it? That's a pretty good effort then. You've sat here patiently, you know what, you've got 2 minutes from when you start speaking. Is the red light going to come on? It's going to come on.
My name is Dashin. I speak on behalf of my family, the owners of 2 of the 3 existing convenience stores in Copthorne. We've been residents of Copthorne for over 20 years, and we've owned our first independent shop in Copthorne 9 years ago. We have invested all of our time and money in these local convenience businesses as well. We acquired a Quick Mart store 2 years ago, which includes a well-used sub-post office, with only the alternative post office being at Pound Hill, which is like a drive away from Crawley, or in Crawley Barrow. The post office is a valued community asset, as stated in the Copthorne Neighbourhood Plan. The Tesco Group do not have it within their express model design. The economic of both the convenience store and the post office are well balanced. One has the dependency upon the other. The fees for running the sub-postmaster council account are approximately equal to the net profit earned on all of the convenience activities. That is not the case for Tesco or the proposed convenience store. So we're able to widen their margins as they have a bigger footprint in the supply line. This committee needs to be aware that the Tesco store will encourage the closure of the Quick Mart store and with it the post office. And the village will therefore have no such facility. There is no alternative option to this. We cannot afford to do so. Therefore, I urge this committee to give full weight and consideration to the sequential test. Once again, I urge this committee to refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I might even call your surname as well. Chris, is it Chris Miller?
Yeah, that's it.
That's good enough. You're the planning agent and you're speaking on, in support of this. Is that heating not on?
It just takes time.
Some paper.
Yeah, we've got lots of paper here, yeah. Okay. When you start to speak, you get your 2 minutes. Thank you. Let's.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. I'm here speaking in support of the proposal today on behalf of the applicant, and I wish to respond to the two main areas of concern that have been raised by the Parish Council and local residents. Issue 1 relates to the principle of retail development. Today's recommendation represents the culmination of 2 years' work with the Council, which included a pre-application inquiry to ensure that the overall quantum of development was suitable for this site. At pre-app stage, the Council's planning policy team confirmed that there was no national or local planning policy objection regarding the creation of a new store in Copthorne and that the sequential test does not apply. Despite this, and at considerable cost to the applicant commissioned a retail assessment to support the application, which demonstrates that there is available retail expenditure within this settlement to support a new store. The store will benefit the local community, including new residents at Heathy Wood, by providing residents with further choice of convenience goods, which will allow more people to shop locally and reduce the need for car trips to larger stores elsewhere. This is especially important to those with mobility issues and elderly residents. It's recognised that the proposal will increase consumer choice in Copthorne, but as you've already heard, it is not the purpose of the planning system to prevent competition between retailers. For these reasons, the principle of development is acceptable. Issue 2 relates to the reduction of the pub garden. The Prince Albert is a small village pub with a limited catering offering. It is not a destination pub which draws in trade from far and wide, and it is not a family pub which sells food and children's meals. It's a locals pub for those wanting a drink, and a pub of that nature does not need a substantial garden to operate viably, as evidenced by the viability report. The proposed garden is suitable for the retained pub, and it will be landscaped to a high standard and easily accessible to patrons. For these reasons, the proposal is acceptable. So, members, to conclude, the application has been thoroughly assessed by your officer, who has found it to be acceptable and in accordance with the development plan. Therefore, I hope you agree with his recommendation to grant permission and vote in favour of approving the proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I know it was a long sentence, but I'll let you have that one. All right, Councillor Phillips is the local ward councillor for the members and the residents up in the gallery and for the viewers of YouTube. He's not subjected to the 2 minutes. He has said to me it may be rather long. At least it's not a book like one of them did before.
Gibson special.
Yeah. Away you go.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, members, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. I do apologise for the length of the presentation, but I, like the vast majority of residents of Copthorne, do not believe that this application is in the interest of our village. You've already heard some of the concerns of residents of Copthorne regarding this application, some subjective and some significant planning matters. Before turning to the planning matters, I'd like to make one comment. Usually, if people are given the opportunity to reduce their grocery bills, they will bite your hand off. In this case, you have 604 people objecting, a significantly high engagement rate, and only 14 in favour. This should give you a strong sense that residents do not think this application is in the best interest of the village. Firstly, I'd like to comment on para 2 of the officer's report. In para 2, 5 and 6, reference is made to a lack of a 5-year land supply. While this is a major factor, I would refer you to an appeal decision received for a site in Hurst House, Copthorne Common Road only last week, DM 251864, where the planning inspector rejected the application as although MSDC do not have a 5-year land supply currently, unsuitable sites can still be rejected. And I will later explain to you in more detail why I believe this application should be rejected. In para 2.7, reference is made to this being a brownfield site. I respectfully suggest that this is not a brownfield site, it is a pub garden, include children's play equipment and is part of a continuing, fully functioning business. A brownfield site in a village location needs to be a rundown site that's not currently in use. In para 2.8, the officer's report states that the development will not have a material effect on the viability of the pub. I respectfully suggest this defies any economic logic. In the summer months, a major part of the pub income is derived from families using the pub garden and the children playing in the garden and on the equipment. The proposed reduction in the size of the garden can only have a dramatic effect on the level of business and would be contrary to Copthorne Neighbourhood Plan 5.2, which seeks to oppose development which endangers existing essential businesses. As well as the pub, the impact of the general store and post office 2 doors away from the proposed development would be such that it could cause the closure of the post office, which would be a great loss to the village, which again is contrary to Copthorne Neighbourhood Plan 5.2. In addition to being contrary to that, the consequences would be environmentally unfriendly, as instead of walking to the pub, families would get into their cars and drive to pubs further afield that have facilities for children. In your officer's report, he mentioned that there is an area of unused grounds immediately behind the pub. What he didn't mention was that there is actually planning permission on there for 8 overnight units to help with the viability of the pub. Turning now to planning issues that I claim would justify rejection. One of the major issues which I conclude has not been adequately addressed is the effect of large delivery vehicles blocking Copthorne Bank to reverse onto this site. When the physical transport assessment was completed by West Sussex County Council, Shipley Bridge Lane was closed for several weeks for improvements, and so the effect of buses and HGVs turning into Shipley Bridge from Shipley Bridge Lane into Copthorne Bank to be confronted 70 metres away by a vehicle blocking the road was not assessed. Another highways officer in West Sussex County Council that was visiting the village on another matter has, however, spent some time standing at the proposed entrance of the site and was of the opinion that it would be dangerous access for large delivery vehicles. I also believe that the proposed construction is overdevelopment of the site. What is currently a green space is substantially built over by a store, a small supermarket, not convenience store in practice, an apartment such that it's not capacity for reasonable green space for any gardens for their apartment. Also, the 2.5-storey apartments on a raised area are out of keeping with the character of the area, as the nearest dwellings are established 2-storey houses and bungalows. The application is always contrary to DP 25 as part of enhancing the existing community facilities. It will be detrimental to the existing facilities as it will affect the viability of the village post office, as you've already heard from the only people who really know the finances involved. The loss of this facility in a village environment is undesirable. It is also contrary to Copthorne Neighbourhood Plan 12, which requires infills in the CA4 character area to be sensitive and modern, and this development fails to sustain or reinforce the positive aspects that make up the character area. I contend that the construction materials proposed are not suitable for a village site and are contrary to DB 26. The cladding that is proposed for the construction of the store may be suitable for out-of-town sites where industrial sheds are constructed, are out of character in a village scene and are contrary to the Mid-Sussex District Plan Design Guide and contrary to DP 26 as it causes harm to the character of the development. The car parking of 23 spaces is simply and obviously inadequate for the proposed store and the public house themselves. But although the car park is described as a private park, it has, for the 46 years that I have been living in Copthorne, been used for the adjacent shops, including the post office, estate agent, pizzeria and the Delmar Morgan Hall over the road, which is the site of a play school and only has 4 parking spaces of its own. With the increased volume of traffic generated by the convenience store, evidenced by Tesco Express stores' publicly available financial benchmarks, versus what we know from the current owner of Quick Mart regarding the current level of financial activity, it would indicate traffic levels 3 or 4 times of the current level, which would generate far more traffic than the car park could cope with and would move traffic parking on the road, blocking the entrance to the site, making the manoeuvre to gain access to the site impossible. This will be exacerbated even further if we should anticipate the inadequately sized car park is deemed to be a private car park for the use of the site only. Even without the parking facility for the neighbouring shops, etc., the normal requirements will be 46 spaces for this development. Policy CMP 15.2 of the neighbourhood plan requires that all new off-road parking should have provision for electric charging. This revised car park does not have this provision, and the parking solution we simply defies reason. In response to the objections to the entrance to the site from the local bus company, due to a problem embarking and disembarking disabled passengers, the solution proposed is to take away one of the parking spaces in the lay-by in front of the post office and estate agents to create a lower curb. Although one parking space may not seem much, because of the layout of the lay-by, it will cause an unnecessary amount of disruption and danger to vehicles and pedestrians attempting to visit existing premises, especially if they're strict vehicles using the parking of the site, as seems likely. The proposed 2.5-storey apartments are to be built on land that is already raised and will have an overbearing impact on the properties of Dawn Rise to the south of the site and also the nearest cottage in Brookhill Road. On the other side of Brookhill Road are bungalows, which will be dwarfed by this building. From Dawn Rise, it will appear the apartments are 3.5 storeys high and are unreasonably close to the existing properties. I suggest that the applicants are aware that this is a problem, as they have redesigned the apartments to eliminate windows on the south side of the dwellings. This will arguably worsen the undesirable view that the existing dwellings would have, as they would be looking at a sizable solely brick construction. The proposed reduced garden area for the pub could actually create an environmentally unaccepted situation for the apartments, as although in the daytime they would, as the officer report submits, not be subject to noise, but in the summer months they would be subject to noise late into the evening, especially when sport is on television, and the smell of a barbecue for several hours at a time. Every Friday evening the pub has music, which would be a further irritant to the apartment's residents. Surely this is undesirably environmentally and contravenes DP 29. The viability report fails to explain how the loss of the garden will be to the benefit of the pub. I accept the point raised in 9.3 that the place is no longer registered as an asset of community value. I would, however, comment that this was one of the most perverse decisions I've seen, as I would submit that one remaining public house in the village is prima facie an asset of community value. It may only be a coincidence that a month after it was rejected, this application was submitted. The pub is, however, listed as an important community facility in the Copthorne neighbourhood plan, and reducing the viability of the pub would be contrary to DP 25 and CMP 4. Turning now to para 12, the assessment, the report lies heavily on Savills' viability report, which was produced without input from the existing publican, and the result contains inaccuracies. Members should be mindful that this has been produced at the applicant's expense to enhance their case. Para 12.7 states that the kitchen was not in use. As you've already heard, the applicant's agent had taken time to speak to the landlord. They had discovered that the reason for this was that the landlord was having trouble finding a chef. The kitchen is now operational again, and the intention is that it will continue and will be supplemented by the continuing use of barbecue in the summer months. In the agent's viability report, they state that the kitchen has been condemned. This is not the case, and it is regrettable that such statements, which are obviously incorrect, are made. Also contrary to the comment in this paragraph, which the clientele is male-dominated. This is not a working man's club. It's a shared gender venue. This is a working village pub, which in the summer months is dominated by families using the current garden facilities. Para 12.8 states that the large garden is not necessary for the viability of the pub. As previously explained, this is palpably not the case, and as the garden is essential for the operating of the pub in the summer. As explained in the response to 12.7, the statement that the kitchen is too small to cater for the numbers in the garden is based on ignorance, as a barbecue is due to supplement the kitchen in the summer months. Para 12.11 states that the removal of the garden will have a nominal effect on the viability of the pub. Frankly, I find that statement economically illiterate, as anyone with an ounce of sense that has viewed the site will conclude that the garden is essential for the business of the pub. Para 12.12, the comment that the garden is private and not for the use of children shows again that lack of consultation and understanding of the situation. The residents' comments were not that it was a playground, but that children used the play area while their parents had a drink and maybe something to eat. Para 12.13 is now redundant as the kitchen is now operating and the garden will create a family-friendly environment in the summer. As I've already made clear, the statement that the kitchen is condemned is very concerning and misleading, as it will give an unfavourable view of the premises should someone not be aware of the circumstances when they read it. Again, I would suggest it brings into question the reasonableness and reliability of the report. Copthorne does not have a centre. This was established when MSDC itself carried out surveys of villages to propose improvements. Therefore, the contention in the retail justification report concerning sequential considerations is incorrect when comparing this site to a centre, and in any case, the cases quoted refer to towns and not villages. On the logic applied, Copthorne would have at least 3 centres rather than a disparate spread of retail that typifies the village. The report also overestimates the top-up convenience expenditure available, as explained in Worth Parish Council's submission of the 4th December. It grieves me to say so, but this application was submitted without consultation with the local community by a commercial organisation on behalf of a New York hedge fund. There is little of any interest on the impact of the village. In summary, I would submit that the application be refused on the grounds that the transport assessment is not adequate and out of date, and the proposed entrance is dangerous. The parking is inadequate. The construction materials for the convenience store are not appropriate for a village setting. The proposed apartments have an overbearing effect on neighbouring properties, and the position of the apartments will be subject to unreasonable environmental factors due to the closeness of them to the pub, garden, and the pub itself. Thank you very much, members, and again, I do apologise, but as you'll gather, I do feel very strongly about it.
One of your predecessors came with 20 pages once. So, what is it with the water in Copthorne? Okay, well, you've heard everybody speak. I'm going to go to the ward councillor, Councillor Casella, then I'm going to the other ward councillor just up the road from.
Well, I think Councillor Phillips has pretty much taken everything I was going to say. But to reiterate some of it, this project is not wanted and not needed within our village. The pub did have an asset of community value status. When we went to renew that back at the end of 2024, the applicants brought a barrister in from London who came up with a few spurious reasons why it shouldn't be granted again, which frightened off our officers, and it was declined. We were told we could appeal that decision. We put forward a very good appeal, and all of a sudden we were told, you can't appeal. You're not allowed to appeal if it's refused. So that smells a bit dodgy to me.
It is, Graham.
Yeah. The exit from the flats into Brookhill Road is out and out dangerous. Whatever they say about splays, you've got cars coming over the top of a blind hill. You've got cars turning quickly out of Copthorne Bank, looking right and not looking left. It's an accident just waiting to happen, and it will. I walk past that on a daily basis. I know what that road is like. Round on Copthorne Bank, that's the most dangerous junction we have in the village. To block that up with lorries reversing in and out will cause even more chaos than is there already. To narrow down the parking in front of the shops, again, causes more chaos. I don't know who in West Sussex Highways looked at this, but we had West Sussex Highways people there looking at a lollipop lady further down the road. They went up and looked at the junction and where the exit would be, and they declared it out and out dangerous. So someone somewhere is doing something. The pub's viability report, I think they were given, Savills were given the conclusion, then told to write a report to get to that conclusion. That's how it reads to me. The flats are going to be almost in the pub garden. So if you want to live in a flat and share your life with people in the pub garden and listen to loud rock music every Friday night, that's going to be the place for you. But environmentally, the environmental report, again, is not worth the paper it's printed on. You're basically putting a tin box in a pub garden, and it looks like a tin box, and it will always look like a tin box. It's not needed. We want to retain our village post office, which will go, as has been told, if that development happens. I hope some of you have been on a site visit and had a look and seen what it's like, so you know what we're talking about. You've also had some very comprehensive notes from the parish council setting out reasons for refusal, which I totally endorse. So don't ask me to approve it.
Say how it is.
Yeah.
Councillor Hitchcock, my vice chairman.
This is quite a difficult case. We have the influence of the officers telling us one thing, and we have the residents, and I know all of these residents who are in this room, telling us something else. I'm with the residents. I'm with the residents because I want to support the existing local businesses. The retail impact test was required due to the size of the building that was going in. I think that's irrelevant in terms of the impact on the village. I think the sequential tests should have been done, and they would certainly have come to a conclusion that there would be harm. I take the loss of amenity as a serious issue, and also the associated effect on the business. I am of the view that the pub will fold if this goes ahead. So I'm unable to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sweatman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think it was yesterday I visited the site, and if members look at that plan on there, you think, well, you know, that's quite big, you know, it could be fished. I was surprised how small it was, which leads me to think that with the 2.5-storey flats at the back, that is going to lead to, I think, overdevelopment of the site. Let's go back to the pub. Yes, the pub does look run down. It certainly needs refurbishment. But however, I did notice they had a blackboard sign out there for Sunday roast. Whether that's has been left out or what, I don't know. The fact is, you're taking away, if the pub is an important part of village life, extremely important, and there's so many closing down these days, as we all know. The fact is that pub needs refurbishing. You're taking away, this development takes away that opportunity, if it were the case, for someone or whoever owns it, brewery or the landlord, to actually develop it. In which case, the viability of that pub is going to be pretty negative, and I fear it, because of this, taking the opportunity away, it will end up going. I just think we ought to, shame we haven't got a policy on common sense, really, because, and I know it's not a planning issue, and we sit here and we have to go by planning legislation. However, to put a convenience store bang right next door to a store, and I walked in the store and I spoke to, it's quite an impressive store. It's got a post office. How many banks are shutting their branches and people are relying on post office? You're lucky to have a village post office. So you need to keep that viable. If that post office goes, that will be total disaster for the village. And I know it's Steve's looking at me over there saying, well, and I quite agree with Andy and Steve that it's not a planning consideration on competition of properties, but it's common sense that you don't reduce the viability of a store by putting one direct. It's different if you've got the footfall, like in East Grinstead where I live. You know, you've got a paper shop, a few doors up the road, you've got another paper shop, round the corner you've got another paper shop. You've got the footfall. In Copthorne, I don't think you've got that footfall like you have in East Grinstead. So, I'm going to leave it there for the moment, let other members speak, but I just hold my hands up sometimes, really.
Right, before I go to Councillor de Bell, can I ask, Andy, can you put up the street view of, yeah, that one. I'm going to back up what Councillor Sweatman just said. In my village, we almost lost our pub, but the pub was saved because everybody in the village clubbed around and bought the pub. We lost our post office, but it reopened as an outreach in the village shop. The village shop goes, the pub and our post office goes. You must know that because you lost your Horsty Canes. I probably got that one wrong again, have I? Yeah, I got it wrong again. You almost lost the post office in that village. We've got to go to what we call planning reasons if we don't like this. And I have two planning reasons why I don't like it. The size of that building. It's so out of keeping with the rest of that road, with the bungalows the other side of the road. It dwarfs the pub. I mean, that's just not on. Andy, could you put up the what the Tesco's looks like, please? That is probably just about the most unimaginative building I think I've ever seen. I think if Tesco, that's not, we haven't got any. Stamp on it, it normally works. AI burned it back on again. Right. I old Tesco's want to put their name to that design defeats me. Because it's all about brightness, Tesco's and any of the supermarkets, that's like a little pokey couple of windows and the rest of it looks like a Nissan hut. So I'm afraid, I just feel that's another reason why it can be refused. I'm not an expert on parking, but they seem to think that's enough. And I'm not an expert on viability of pubs, but there are two reasons that we can go for this. Planning reasons. And I like the common sense rule, but I don't think that's a planning consideration.
No, Chair, if I might come back, yes.
Yes, I know. Right, that's my two pence as the chairman. Councillor de Bell.
And very well said, sir. Very well said. I think this is the sort of thing. We're often faced with these sort of planning decisions, and the officers have to come forward with the facts. And we're left with the, sometimes it's the can we, very often it's the should we, and sometimes it's the must we, because if these things fail sometimes, we know that they're going to go away, go appeal, and they'll get bludgeoned through. And I think that this is the sort of thing that comes down as a warning to us, because the most important word to me has always been, for a long, long time, community, and that's what I see around us here. Community. And that is what this represents today and has been put to us. And somehow or other, we have to make sure that community goes forward. And I think that whatever else happens, this should come as a warning to not only this area, but a lot of areas where community exists, because there are always hungry eyes looking to make profits, and they're not to be vilified for that. That is, you know, it's the sort of thing that everybody's engaged in. But community is more important, and that is why I should be voting against this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Cherry.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I should be definitely voting against this proposal. When I read the report, I was after it, I just wrote down all these bullet points as to why it wasn't a good idea. All of them have been mentioned, so I won't repeat again. One observation on Tesco Express, which is taking 15 spaces, car parking spaces, it's going to have a staff, like we gather, of 6 full-time people and 17 part-time people to be working in there between the hours of 6 in the morning and 11 o'clock at night. Now, I'm thinking, well, how are all this staff, how's all these staff going to be getting there, and where are they going to park? And then we have the issue of the Tesco delivery lorries. I mean, and then a whole catalogue of other reasons why this is just a terrible idea. And I will definitely be voting against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't familiar with this pub or that part of Copthorne at all. So I went up for a visit onto the site on Monday. Having looked at the plans beforehand and the application and some of the documentation that we've been seeing on the screen, I was quite surprised to see the surrounding area, and as you've just said, how inconsistent the proposed 2.5-storey building is with its archway, and a much reduced pub garden, which on its south side will have 2.5 stories of building. It's just inconsistent with the surrounding buildings and the houses and, as you've said, bungalows. And I think the whole site, somebody else mentioned it, it looked to me to have been overdeveloped, and it's completely inconsistent with the surrounding buildings and area. And as again, someone else has said, this is an ugly building, and I don't think it
Which
really
one, that
meets...
one or the
this one
Tesco's?
that's up here. And I don't think it's one that I would feel comfortable approving, just for that reason alone. So I'm minded to vote against as well.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, following on from that comment, forgive me, I haven't looked at the design guide in relation to this, and it's only, you know, attending and listening to and seeing the drawings that I can see that it is overbearing, and I would have thought that the design guide could be referenced and could be part of that of our rejection of this. Then on the other thing that I'm conscious of is the Councillor Phillips mentioned a recent inspector's decision to turn down a small development, the housing, and as we know, we have difficulties with the design guide with the district plan at the moment, and we've got this tilted balance. But I don't know whether it was that one, but I saw another one that came into my in-tray on my inbox the other day, and that was also, I think there were 4 flats, and the inspector had said he didn't regard them as making a substantial contribution to the housing needs, you know. And this is 6, I think I'm right in saying. It's 4?
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, there you are. It's exactly the same. So I think those are 2 things we should take into account. Thank you.
It's not, I can't ask Councillor Phillips, but it's not that far away from this location, is it? The flats that they killed, yeah, you're nodding. Yeah, it's a shame that it's come to this, because this, as Andy said, it's taken 2 years to get to this stage. If that's the best that 2 years can come, I think personally that it's overbearing, overdevelopment, and not conducive to the street scene, and the design of the convenience store there is quite frankly appalling, to be fair. It's appalling, and I think Tesco's could have done a hell of a lot better. I'm going to have to go to the vote for to approve or to refuse, and then once I know where we're at, I'm going to propose to just terminate the live feed. Myself, my vice chairman, and the officers will just disappear while we get together what we think the reasons. Okay. I'm going to propose for a refusal that this should not go ahead. I'm sorry I'm taking it away from you. You can second it. For the reasons that I've just laid out: overdevelopment of the site, overbearing, out of the street scene, and the convenience store inappropriately designed. Can I have a seconder, please? Well, I've got Councillor Casella that. So you've heard my proposal, and we've got a seconder. So the proposal is to refuse this application, and then we'll have to go out and do the full word. So can we have the? We don't vote on the refusal first. Yes, you do. You go straight because I proposed it. Do we have to vote on the approval first, or the? Because I proposed.
Can I use the microphone?
Yeah, of course you can.
Chair, the recommendation before committee is an officer recommendation to approve. So members can do one or two things. Well, members can move a motion to reject the officer recommendation. That's just rejecting the officer recommendation. It doesn't mean that the application falls. Members can then come back with their own proposal, with their own reasons about what they want to do with the application. An officer recommendation is not a motion because it's an officer report, and it's for members to accept the recommendation or not. Once they accept the recommendation, it then becomes a motion for them to vote on. But if members don't accept the recommendation falls, and members then have to come up with their own motion, and that's where you can put your motion to reject with your reasons. Thank you. So your first motion is to reject.
The motion is that I propose to reject the officer's recommendation and to move for refusal. Can I have a seconder, please? Right. Can we vote on the motion?
Sorry, Chair, just...
Right, have I got that one?
Yeah, we just reject the officer recommendation full stop.
Yeah.
And then, after that's been rejected on a vote, yeah, we then move to a separate motion.
Okay, so we do 2 votes.
Yeah, we don't do it together.
Yep. Right. I'd like to propose a motion to refuse this application. I'm looking for a seconder. Thank you. And the reasons for refusal are the design, the appearance of the block of flats and the prospective retail unit, and the impact on the character of the appearance of the area. Now, the balance into this is the acknowledgement of the limited positive weight of the proposed flats, weighed up against the substantial harm that is identified within the proposed motion. So adverse impact would be significantly and demonstrably outweighed by the benefits of the proposal. Does anybody wish to discuss anything on that? Nope, you happy with that? So therefore, I will go to the vote. The final wording of the reasons will be out by the officers and myself and my vice chairman, which will then be shared with yourselves. Okay, so can we go to the vote, please? It's green if you agree with the motion, red or amber if you don't. Okay, that's unanimous. This is being refused. Thank you very much. We haven't finished yet.
Oh, sorry, carry on.
Do it in a minute, please. Right, item 11. I've got no reasons, recommendations for refusal. Item 11 is questions pursuant to council procedure, rule 10.2, due notice of which has been given. I have none, so therefore I will close the meeting at 6:59 p.m., not a.m., p.m., and can remain seated until the live feed has been killed, please.